The DCU has started with James Gunn Superman, but we have gotten so many Superman movies before this one, so why not rank them all? Batman vs. Superman is basically Man of Steel 2, and Justice League follows that up, so it only makes sense to include both of those on this list too.
You give the impression you're leading a double life.
Really?
Look, this film is not downright bad, but it is very much a TV show pilot episode, but it was just turned into a movie instead. It was made in the 50s, so now it's extremely outdated, and the movie doesn't really show what Superman truly is. For it being a movie that's supposed to advertise a TV show, it did not make me excited for that show at all. I do not want to check out that show. If anything, I want to stay away from that show as much as possible. This was essentially the audience's first impression to Superman to see what this hero is actually like, and it was an awful job at it. This movie, we barely showcased Superman. When we did showcase Superman, it's not showing his hope factor. He's just saving things against these mole people. Out of all the villains you could have picked for Superman, you picked these mole people. They just do whatever. They didn't even do anything that bad. I'm glad this thing is basically forgotten about because it's not truly what Superman is, and it's the weakest out of all his films. Man, this was disappointing because it was such a huge drop in quality from the first two movies. Now, this was my first time watching through the original Christopher Reeves movies, and going from the first and second movie is all the way up there. But then I got to the third movie where it was just a drastic drop in quality. A sequel that has almost nothing that made the first two movies good. The film is not even about Superman. It was about this villain guy. I don't even know what that was about. And the entire movie, Superman is just being a jerk. Yes, it's because the kryptonite ingredient was wrong, but I don't even think that's the way they should have done this story. Superman being a jerk the entire movie, it's just hard to root for him. On top of that, the movie's not even about him. It's about the villains instead. What was about to be a perfect trilogy for Superman drastically dropped in quality for this film.
Like brunch. Like, what is brunch? You wait in line for an hour for essentially lunch.
Although it is the same story as the Snyder Cut, they're just basically completely two different films. They follow the same story, but completely different tones, completely different character arcs. They're just completely different movies. And now that we actually do have the Snyder Cut, you see how much they actually changed the film in this version of it. Final battle is completely different. Character arcs are completely different. This version, Justice League, does not feel like the Justice League. Everything is rushed and feels like it was just being held together with duct tape. Feels like they worked it in the editing room too much, reshot the movie too much, that this team is no longer a team, and they just argue most of the movie. It's hard to root for this team when you don't feel the dynamic between the team. And especially since we have the Snyder Cut, we see how much was actually changed. And it's baffling that they took that stuff out. I'll talk about the Snyder Cut later on, but the final battle is completely changed. Shockingly, it's different. And the B-roll I'm pulling up right now as I talk about this movie, when screen recording that, I was watching the trailer, and none of that footage is in this movie. All the footage shown in that original trailer is everything that Zack Snyder intended before they had to reshoot the film. Because if you look at the final battle, it's not red. It's what the Snyder Cut did for their final battle. They're just using footage from what Zack Snyder shot, showing how much this film was reworked in the editing room and only proving why the Snyder Cut is even better of a film.
With Mariel Hemingway and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, Superman 4.
Now, I do understand that most people have this Dead Last Place thing. It's one of the worst comic book movies out there. I'm not there. I think it's drastically better than Superman 3, but not still a good movie. I do understand all the problems with this movie, but the third movie was not about Superman. Superman's a jerk. There's nothing to root for in the third movie of Superman, where this time around, he's more of a main character. And it's one of those movies that's so bad it's good. There's a lot of laugh out loud moments. Why is that a plotline? I don't know. I'm just gonna laugh at it, because why not? This movie has some weird writings, a weird villain. Everything is just very baffling with some of the decisions they decided to go with for this fourth movie. But yet again, it's a so bad it's good movie. It's fun to make fun of. because it still at least improved on writing problems from the third movie. This time we actually focused on Clark Kent, we focused on Superman. In my opinion, it's more watchable than the third movie. The third movie is about the villain, I don't want to see that. This time it's actually about Superman, so it's a little bit more enjoyable than the third movie, but still not yet a good movie. The writing is just all over the place and it's extremely messy, but it still has at least some enjoyment out of it. There's a lot in this movie that works for me, but it's not able to fully capture what the Christopher Reeves movies did. Now, my biggest problem with this film is that it's in the Christopher Reeves franchise. It takes place right after the second film all these years later. And because of that decision is why it doesn't work for me. Every actor you cast, every actress you cast, they're not the original actors. There's a huge missing puzzle, and that's what it is. They're not the original actor. And when you have a movie that takes place all these years later in the same timeline and cast people who are not able to still capture the same magic as those original people, it's just a huge flaw that you just see right through. And the reason why Superman left in the first place made no sense to me. I know it has to happen for the sake of plot, but it just made no sense to me. Now, I enjoyed the first half, but the second half is more about Lois and Lex Luthor more than actual Superman. The ending of this movie would have been more impactful if the second half was not about Lois and Luthor, it was more about Superman. Yes, I like ideas. Like I said, I like the ending. I like the idea of bringing Superman back after all these years. But execution-wise is not the best. Writing-wise, not the best, but still enjoyable. I know there's some people out here saying that this is the best Superman movie, the best comic book film of all time. I was never there. I'm not there. This is the weakest out of all of Zack Snyders' DCEU films for me. But I still do like what he's telling. He has certain themes, storylines that work for me in this movie. It's just a matter of execution where it didn't. Now don't get me wrong, Henry Cavill is a fantastic Superman. He was casted perfectly. But I just don't think Zod is a good villain for a first Superman movie. He's too big of scale. In this movie, Superman is still finding himself. He doesn't know who he fully is yet. Having Zod, who's about to destroy the Earth, as your villain, while Superman is still trying to find out who he is as a person, not knowing 100% of what he wants to do on planet Earth yet, and having Zod try to destroy the Earth, I just don't think those two balance nicely. And the first half of this movie is origin story we already know, so the first 40 minutes are extremely slow. But once Zod comes into play, it picks up its pace. This was the start to the Zack Snyder trilogy. I can appreciate it for that factor, and I do like a lot of the ideas tackled in here, but execution wasn't there for me. But I understand that a lot of people love this film, and good for you, but I'm not there. Real quick, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider subscribing. Let's continue. And it's essentially Man of Steel 2, where I like a lot of the themes tackled. I love the political side of things. I love the direction taken. I love a lot of ideas in this film, but it is brought down for me just because everything in this film doesn't matter anymore. We have James Gunn's Superman in the DCU. This universe doesn't matter anymore. You can appreciate Zack Snyder for his vision, but the movie just doesn't have the same impact if everything you're watching doesn't matter. I was always a defender of this movie, and I still am a defender of this movie. I love Ben Affleck's Batman. I love the political side of Superman. I love this version of Lex Luthor. But just anything in this movie doesn't have the same meaning if we know we're not getting the entire Zack Snyder trilogy. We have Zack Snyder's Justice League, but we don't have Justice League 2 and 3. So everything in this movie has payoff, but not enough payoff, especially since you're setting up Justice League 2 and 3 with Flash going back in time. This is a movie that will be forgotten 15 years from now. Everything in this movie doesn't matter, but I still love a lot of ideas taken with this film.
You think I'm Superman?
Willing to bet my life on it.
You know, when I heard there was a director's cut of Superman 2, I was expecting something a lot different than what we got. Instead, it's the same film. I don't care what you want to argue, the only thing different is basically the opening and the end and the few scenes in the middle. That's it. it's essentially the same film. Now I can say it's nice to see what the original version of this film was going to be before they reworked it because director problems. It's nice to see what the original take on the film was going to be and how much was changed, but in the end, it's the exact same film. And if I were to rewatch either film, I would prefer the original over this version. Now, do I love all the scenes added in this film? Yeah, I love them all. The ending in this film is significantly better than the ending in the second film. But I would much rather watch the second movie, although it is the exact film. The second one was the one I watched first, and I feel like that one just had more of an impact for me than this director's cut, because I was essentially watching the exact same movie. The scenes added in here just felt like deleted scenes that would be on the DVD. We did not need to release a full movie of this. You could have very easily put it in the special features tab on the DVD instead of making this director's cut instead. But like I said, we can just appreciate the fact that we actually do have this director's cut.
You haven't seen the best part. The adventure continues.
A sequel that keeps everything great about the original film and continues that storyline forward. Continuing plot threads I loved about the original film. This time around, we get more of that Clark and Lois dynamic. Superman, without that Lois and Clark dynamic, there's a huge piece of the puzzle missing, and I'm glad it's in here, which is the problem with 3 and 4. We don't have that dynamic in there. But this movie is setting up that romantic relationship until Clark erases her memory, which is why I like the director's cut ending better. But of course, it's not as iconic as the original film. It still made an impact because there's a lot of things in here that are similar to Spider-Man 2, more than that eventually. And it still doesn't match the same quality as the first film, but does not fall short behind, and is still a really great follow-up to that original iconic Superman film. Not only is this a huge improvement from the original film, but it just shows us what Zack Snyder had planned. By making the film 4 hours long, you're able to flesh out all these characters, all these different storylines that were all rushed in the 2-hour version of Justice League. It was too rushed in that version. This time, we make sure to flesh every little thing out. Cyborg, Flash, just the storyline too. It's all extremely fleshed out in the best way possible. And it's just baffling, when watching this film and comparing it to the original film, what they changed. Steppenwolf is 10 times better. We get Darkseid. The final battle is one of the best final battles in a superhero film. It's just 10 times better of a film. And Zack Snyder. You can just appreciate Zack Snyder for the vision that he had. Throughout this movie, we get to see what Justice League 2 and 3 would have been, and it looks amazing and dark. So you just have to appreciate the vision for that factor. But I used to give this movie a 5 out of 5, and you can't tell from my energy, I would give it a 5 out of 5. But the reason that I can't is because none of this matters. None of it matters. 15 years from now, when the DCU is popular like the MCU was, people are going to eventually find this film and talk about it, of that failed DCEU. And they're going to look back and find this movie and find its existence and remember about it again. Would I be mad if we got Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3? I'll actually be really excited about it. But the DCU is here. This movie and the DCEU don't matter anymore. I still love this film, but James Gunn is here to take up that next mantle. So we just have to move forward and appreciate what Zack Snyder did when he had the chance.
The gift of flight. Superman, the movie.
Preparing for this ranking, this was my first time watching the film, and I was surprised that I have not seen it because it's so iconic. And when watching the film, yes, I can see why this film is iconic. This film influenced a lot of other comic book films, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy copies the same formula that these Superman trilogies did. Superman 3, Superman was a jerk. Spider-Man 3, Bully Maguire. Superman 2, love problems, discovering yourself. Spider-Man 2, the same thing. First Spider-Man, origin story. It's the same formula. Just showing on how iconic this is and how much of an impact it made in the comic book genre. And there are plenty of iconic scenes that still hold up in this movie, like the end when Superman reverses time. I did not know that was in the film, but now I know where it's from. And I love that scene. I love Superman in Superman. He is that figure of hope. Christopher Reeves was Superman. This film kind of started it all for the comic book genre, and without this film, we would probably not have the MCU or any other movie, because this is the reason why comic book movies are as popular as they are. Sure, there are a few moments that probably didn't age that well because it is like a 70s film, but it's still iconic and still holds up. James Gunn did it. He brought Superman back. And in the DCU. David Cornsweet is Superman. I 100% see why they casted him in the role, because he just embodies Superman. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is my favorite adaptation of Lex Luthor we have ever gotten. I fell in love with every character on screen, from main or side character, and I can't wait to see them again in this DCU. James Gunn did a good job at setting up the DCU rules. It feels like a comic book movie. We're thrown in right into this universe as if it was already set up 3 movies ago, making it feel more like a comic book. This film is just one big comic book. I'm so glad that this movie nailed the marks it needed to hit, giving us the best Superman movie in my opinion. Call it recency bias, I don't care, but this is the best Superman movie for me. It captures what Superman is, that figure of hope, introduces us to the DCU, and gives us a fun time at the theater. This is Superman, and James Gunn did it with the start to the DCU, and if this is what the first movie in the DCU is as good as this, what's the rest gonna look like? Time will tell, but that was my ranking of every Superman film. Anyways, if you like this video, maybe leave those on the side of this YouTube, like, subscribe, see you guys next time, goodbye.